Anyway, it's a tremendous privilege to come back to Varanasi, to come back to this ancient city steeped in history and culture. I'm also personally quite religious, so I was always very keen to come here to the temple, to the Kashi Vishwanath temple, with which my family has a very long history. We are Shaivites from Tamil Nadu. And in fact, my forefathers have built a small chowdhury, as we call, for people from Tamil Nadu to come and stay here. So we have a long history, but I've never had the opportunity to come here. And it was a brief visit. I came here, I went to the temples, which has of course been magnificently renovated in a very modern way. I'm not too sure whether that's the way to go forward with temples, whether we should preserve old temples or to renovate them in designs which are no relation anyway. That's a separate debate we can have. But I was also very keen to go to the Kala Bhairava temple, as that is something which I'm very dear to my heart, and I had the privilege of going there and also to come to the Ghats of the Ganga. Of course, there's a lot of hype about Varanasi when you come here for obvious reasons recently. Some of the hype is true and some of it sort of disappoints you. But that is India. India is always a mixture of disappointment and fulfillment. But this was a very, I like the city. I like the energy of the city. And I'm a big foodie. And Gaurav made it a point to take me to all the food stalls. And we went early in the morning to have that very frothy drink at that time. I came during winter, so we had that. So, and we also went and sat in a tea shop where everybody had a political opinion. And I was very glad that nobody recognized me or even knew who I was, but were giving their opinions very freely. I like that idea. It was almost Athenian, where the citizens come around the city square and talk freely. And that talking freely is something which is getting very difficult in India today.
Fast disappearing.
Yeah, and that tradition of free and frank opinions, free and frank discussions, particularly. And people will have their opinion, say it and go away, and not to carry any rancor or any kind of ill will or prejudice after their opinion is expressed. And I found that in those tea shops. I don't know, in one of those bylines when we went and sat there, and they gave that bread, butter toast and the tea early in the morning. So it was quite an experience, and I quite enjoyed it. But it was a very brief visit. I have always wanted to come back here. And of course, the legend here is unless the Lord Vishwanath calls you back, you cannot come back here. So I guess he's only called me now. So I've come back here 6 times. I hope he calls me back repeatedly. I know the kind of history which this city has, the traditions it has, and the knowledge which sort of seeped into the pores of the city is tremendous. And it will be a shame if you don't preserve it. And when Gaurav told me that he has to come and inaugurate an art exhibition, it was a good excuse to come. I was in Delhi. We had the vice president's election today, so it was only a short hop flight, and I'm here. And I'm looking forward to this day and a half I'm going to spend here. I was actually very pleasantly surprised by the themes both Sangeeta and Neelam have put up here. And anyway, I'd like to first of all congratulate Sana for giving them a platform. And it's not often artists get platforms, and particularly traditional artists don't get too many platforms. And because of the way we are going, Chinese toys, plastic things, mobile phones, we are slowly losing the ability to appreciate things without the aid of a mobile phone in our hands. But it's commendable that you are showcasing young artists, and I was particularly pleased to note the themes Neelam and Sangeeta have highlighted here. One is about women breaking stereotypes and doing things which were traditionally they weren't allowed to or prohibited, or because societal mores did not allow them to do it, but they are doing that. I mean, right from something as simple as flying kites, or to boating, or to or sitting in a bench and lounging around. And also it's very interesting that she's put a motif of people around a temple where you can't make out the gender, almost gender neutral pictures here. And also to show how the life on the riverbank, which would potentially before be only a male bastion, the women are breaking through. And that's even more true today in the 21st century. And particularly as a father of an only daughter, I completely empathize with that. I mean, I don't expect my daughter to follow gender-specific roles or to be confined to you can do this, you can't do this because you're a girl. I think that's changing, but it needs to change fast. I mean, I don't think it's changing fast enough or rapidly. I still think there is a lot of gender discrimination. Even in politics, if you notice that there are not too many women in politics. We are tremendously one of the most underrepresented countries in parliament with women. And most women who come into politics come in because of serious family connections. There are not really standalone women, it's very difficult. So there are many fields, there are many glass ceilings which women need to break. And I think we need to keep chipping at it. It's not going to happen one fine day, it will happen. I think art is a way, by talking, by encouraging, and I'm particularly pleased that they come from rural areas or come to study in Varanasi, and then they're broken free to express themselves, and I like to congratulate them. And I was also very particularly pleased about the juxtaposition of all these endangered species, and I always asked her what does the left and the right mean. She says the past and the future. The future looks very bleak, at least for this owl, which is very distressing. And you know, it's also very pictorially telling you things which we obviously miss out, like how important elephants are for a forest because they clear the path for other animals to traverse, and how important it is for vultures to actually be there. I mean, vultures are there only to prey on dead bodies, but that is a function which needs to be done. I mean, as people who work in crematoriums, people who clean sewers. I mean, they are the hidden people of our society, but the society cannot function without these hidden people, and there must be dignity for them, and there must be dignity for the vultures as well. And I was quite distressed to note that there is a particular chemical which is being used very widely, which is now going to wipe out the entire vulture population. So what happens if the vultures die? So in fact, that's something which has given me something to think about, and I will definitely raise this, and I will write about it, and I will speak about it, because I think these are things which we miss out in the entire political discourse. And we are all so caught up in our own sloganeering and in our own posturing of our positions. We miss out the fact that there is a chemical which is being abundantly used, easily available, prices slashed, which is killing off our vultures. And what happens if there are no vultures in 10 years' time? What happens to the dead carcasses which will be lying all over the place? What happens to that? So what is going to happen? So it's actually very interesting. I think they have portrayed it, better than long speeches. One little picture has conveys everything. I think that's the power of art. Art needs to be encouraged. I don't believe that art can only be left to market forces. The market is cruel. Market forces won't appreciate things. There might be certain artists who will get a market and certain artists won't get a market. I think it's important for society. That is why in the olden days there was patronage from the kings, and today the kings are gone, and we should have corporates and government to patronize arts. And I think it will help if government sort of mandates every time we have a function, instead of giving these meaningless these plaques which have no meaning, we should give folk art. Or when you go visit somebody, we should make it a tradition that if you visit somebody's home, you must take art or a book or something like that. That should become part of our tradition. That's the only way it will pick up. Otherwise, there will be nothing. There has to be cultural changes happening. Cultural change does happen in India. For example, in urban areas now, children don't burst crackers because they know firecrackers are bad for the environment. Child labor is used. So we should also make it an effort to give art or replication of art or books as gifts and things like that. So I think it will happen. India is changing fast. I mean, sometimes it's changing so fast that we don't even realize that it's changed. I mean, it's gone so fast. I mean, as a professor was telling me, if I had come here in 2014, I would have realized what change has actually happened in the 7, 8 years, So it's a fast changing world. We are all here for a very little while. Hopefully we won't mess it up too much while we are here, and we will do what we have to do. And it's always a great pleasure. I mean, it's always a great learning. I mean, and this little gathering here, I've learned a lot. I mean, I have at least learned 3 or 4 things very, very specifically, which is going to play in my head. I mean, the fact of tribal women breaking stereotypes. As somebody who comes from a privileged, wealthy, upper caste, Hindu family with political connection, I never ever think of any discrimination to me. I mean, as a man, what discrimination do you have? If you have wealth and if you are from the upper echelons of society, you face no discrimination. You get everything you have access to. But then when you suddenly think from a woman's perspective, particularly from a tribal woman's perspective, you realize a simple thing like flying a kite was not allowed, perhaps, and now we are doing it. I mean, if you tell me as growing up you can't fly a kite, I would have laughed at you. I said, what do you mean I can't fly a kite? So I think that's all education, and most importantly about the importance of all these species, the owl, the elephant, the vulture, the sparrow. I mean, I learned about them. I mean, even no textbook would have taught me it so quickly as what I learned from seeing these 4 pictures. I mean, I think that's powerful. I think that's the story which art tells. So I'm tremendously privileged to be here, tremendously happy to be here. Again, I want to thank Gaurav for inviting me to this historic city and for making me meet a wide variety of people, because I believe that travel is the best education. I wish more people travel to the south. I mean, we have a grouse in the south that our history, while there is a lot of debate in India about Indian history, about how Indian history is perceived, and we want to correct wrongs. 500 years ago, there was a temple that was destroyed by an invader. There's a lot of stories. I understand that angst, but I have angst from a South Indian. If I ask any ICSE student or a CBSE student, name 3 freedom fighters from South India, they can't name a single one. I mean, it is as if we are the forgotten people of India. We are just like Madrasis making maybe good South Indian tiffin and writing IT code. I mean, there is nothing, our story is not told in India. I mean, I have a big angst about it. I mean, people don't even realize that we are many states. They don't realize our languages. They don't realize our histories. And there is, and even as recent as our freedom struggle, we are completely darkened. Our role in the freedom struggle. I mean, I would be hard pressed, even for people who are well educated, will not be able to name South Indian freedom fighters. Because it will all end with the narrative of Gandhi, Nehru, Patel, and then maybe Tilak and Subhash Chandra Bose and Clinton. It will never ever percolate there. There are so many stories there. I wish while others try to correct history, I think they should be fair about history when they write about the rest of India as well. In fact, I come from this district called Sivaganga. I'm very proud to represent that. My father's represented 7 times. I represent it now. That's where I am from. My forefathers are from there. We are Shaivites, and the name itself, the name of my constituency is Shivaganga. It cannot be more appropriate from Shivaganga to the Ganges here. And we used to have a queen called Velu Nachiyar. 75 years before Jhansi Rani was there, she fought the British. But nobody ever talks about Velu Nachiyar. She fought the British. Her husband was killed. She became the queen. She raised an army and fought the British. And the first suicide bomber was one of her commanders, a woman called Queenie, who went into the garrison of the British and blew herself up. That was the first recorded suicide bomber in Indian freedom struggle. But the rest of India doesn't know. Everybody will know Jhansi Rani, but not a single person will know Velu Nachiyar. That is what 75 years before Jhansi Rani. So I always feel that when people from a certain political persuasion always say, oh, our history has been obliterated because of these invaders came and wrote this story. Our story is not being told. Our culture is being... I have the same problem. I think our story is not being told. our history is not being told. So I have the same problem too. So there is everybody has got something. I would only urge you to travel. Please come to South India. Please come to Shivaganga. There are fabulous houses there. If you have heard of Chettinad, obviously. The Chettinad houses are from my area, and the Chettinad food is very spectacular. And we have fabulous temples, and our traditionals of our temples, the history of our temples predate the temples of North India. To be honest with you, there is the only temple which has a recorded visit of Rama is the Sri Rangam temple in Trichy. The Rama is supposed to have come and prayed there to Vishnu before going in. So in Rameshwaram itself. So you must come there. As we reach out and come here, and as we are always taught the history of India from a North Indian perspective, I think it's important for people from the North also to appreciate what the South offers and what the South did for India and what it continues to do. But that's only possible if we all travel, if we all meet each other, if we exchange ideas. So it's been a great privilege coming here. I look forward to staying here. I'd like to again congratulate Sana, Neelam, and for this beautiful experience, Sangeeta, for this beautiful exhibition. You have really taught me a lot. I mean, particularly the fact that you break stereotypes and the stories you tell about each of these pieces. I think it's very, very powerful. No textbook can do this. You have done that brilliantly. Thank you very much. It's been a great privilege.